company's continuing quest to push hard disk drives out of the data center. The new FlashArray R4 products are faster. The new E family of FlashBlade and FlashArray are higher capacity and lower cost. And there's another new announcement here focused on ransomware recovery, which I know you found interesting. Pure is really trying to lean into this topic, which is basically the same messaging we've been hearing from them for 10 years. What's your take overall on Pure Accelerate?
Yeah, so Pure, I mean, it's great to actually be back in person. I haven't been at one of these for several years, but it's nice to actually be in the room and hear from people directly about what the plan is. There's a bit of a shift in how they're talking about what Pure is doing. For a while, it's sort of got a little bit, I suppose, a bit muddy. Now they're looking at being a bit more direct about our purpose in life is to get rid of hard drives, which is really clear. I do actually like that they're not afraid to say we're a storage company. It's in the name. And now the way Flash is working, it's basically inevitable that the hard drive is going to go away. They're going to really push that message a lot harder and themselves to say, look, we've been a Flash company since founding. That's the whole reason this company exists. And they now have a pretty full portfolio of options. And that was something that came up in the briefings yesterday was until now with like the FlashArray, the E series, there wasn't really a whole solution from Pure. Like you could buy Pure storage and do a whole bunch of stuff with it. But if you had capacity workloads, you pretty much had to go and buy from somebody else because Pure didn't really have something that would do that. And now the way that they've got capacity with the Flash, you can buy everything from Pure, which means that they can start doing things of go into a competitor and sweep the floor. So if you want to get rid of an old hard drive system, you can just buy brand new stuff from Pure. Whatever the workload is that you need, you can find something in the Pure portfolio that will work for you. So I think we're going to see a much clearer message from that. It's going, you can buy Pure, you can do whatever you like on it, and they're going to get a lot more pointy with that for everyone who is trying to get rid of hard drives.
To me, it reminds me of the electric car market in that Pure, essentially by building these all-flash arrays, Pure has a product that is obviously better than the incumbent hard disk-based systems mainly in terms of performance and efficiency, just like electric cars. And it's one of those things I think that most people thought, these are exotic systems, these are expensive systems, I can't possibly get a electric car all-flash storage system that replaces my regular, everyday, normal use case. We are now in the same point with both of these technologies where companies are offering products that absolutely can compete on price and absolutely wipe up the floor on performance and efficiency. And yet, there's still a huge market for these legacy products, hard disk-based storage arrays, hybrid arrays, that sort of thing. But that being said, I think that the announcements that we've seen this week from Pure are important, mainly because it shows that Pure is absolutely interested in going after pretty much everything in the data center, as you said, making sure that there's not really a corner of the enterprise that can't be running on an all-flash Pure array. So I want to take a look at some of these announcements specifically. So first off, I want to talk about the E family. So a few months ago, Pure introduced the FlashBlade E, which is basically a QLC, lower performance, higher capacity, and really less expensive version of the FlashBlade. The FlashArray E follows that and is the same kind of thing except FlashArray. So essentially, the FlashBlade is a scale-out system that fundamentally is an object store, but also supports NAS protocols. That's the FlashBlade. Make sure we got it right. The FlashArray is fundamentally a SAN scale-up storage system, but of course it's unified. It supports NAS protocols as well. Doesn't support object, but essentially we've got a scale-up that targets mainstream workloads in the data center. We've got a scale out that targets object and file unstructured data workloads. And the E series is lower cost, higher capacity, and targeted at sort of secondary applications cold storage, bulk storage, basically the sort of things that previously Flash couldn't go into. The E-series flash array is basically 1 to 4 petabyte range, which sounds fairly large, but really isn't for a lot of these bulk storage applications. And the FlashBlade E-series is kind of 4 plus petabytes. And so you could start thinking about that maybe as like a backup target or something to hold older medical imaging or, AI data that you're no longer processing, but you might want to go back to, that sort of thing. So again, this all goes to Pure's strategy of targeting every use case for spinning hard drives, which in this case is basically lower performance, lower speed bulk hard drives with an all-flash system that comes in at a competitive price. So that's the FlashArray and the FlashBlade E.
There's also an announcement by Pure about Evergreen One. So they've expanded that. It did sort of have 5 SLAs in it. They've added another one, which is around ransomware, which is kind of interesting. It's an optional SLA, or like it's a paid add-on. And the idea is that as well as having all of the SLAs around uptime and how much performance you get, this is around recovery from ransomware. And the thing that I really thought was interesting is that they pulled out one of the use cases that you don't really understand about when you're recovering from ransomware. Sometimes, and particularly when it's important data, you can't actually just recover straight over the original array because you need it for forensics. So you have to kind of freeze the array so that you can look at it. And if you've got law enforcement involved, they want to be able to see it to gather evidence to be able to go and do something with that, which means that your array can't be recovered and put back into production. So while that's happening, which can take weeks, sometimes months, what do you do? So the idea with this is that if you subscribe to this SLA, so you can get another array from Pure as a loaner, and I think it was 180 days worth. They will just give you an array that you can then recover to, and because of the way Pure structures all of its stuff, the heads don't matter, it's all about the data. So if you recover the data to that array, it's basically the original array. So you can have an array that you put back into production and you can keep running on while you keep one for forensic reasons and do all of the ransomware recovery type analytics and what went wrong, how did this happen, what do we need to fix? And then after that's all finished, you can give the loaner array back and you go back into production with the way things would normally work. I think that's really interesting. One caveat on it is that you have to take out the SLA subscription on your entire fleet, which kind of makes sense because you don't know what's going to get hit by ransomware, and Pure needs to understand what sort of capacity it needs to have for what arrays do we need to keep in stock that we can ship out to customers. But it does add an extra way of recovering that keeps customers happy. It makes the customer experience easier when they're basically having the worst day. This just takes one headache away, which I think particularly for a lot of enterprise customers, that's actually going to be really valuable just to have it there as kind of an insurance policy. Having that work as an SLA, I think, is also quite interesting because it's pushing Pure to say, look, this is a commitment we're making to you. So if we don't live up to this, there are extra benefits that you can get back from us. So I'm not exactly sure what happened. Always ask, if you violate the SLA, what do I win? So definitely dig into those details and what would be the impact if they don't live up to that SLA. But it's mostly a signal to the market saying we are this committed to this and we will live up to this promise, which we've added onto the rest of the promise of Evergreen One, which is quite a large thing of saying this should operate more like a service and less like a product that if it breaks, tough.
Yeah, I really think that it's an interesting play for Pure, and it really leans into what they're good at, which is not surprisingly, in my opinion, just Flash. It is the whole customer experience, the whole experience of owning and using and living with these storage systems. So it makes a lot of sense. I also have to point out that Pure has revved the FlashArray C and X models. The new R4 version looks to me like it's running 4th generation Xeon from Intel. It says Intel on the lanyards, and they run DDR5 and support PCIe 4. So I'm guessing those are Sapphire Rapids chips. Now, it's not the kind of thing that people really kick the tires and look at the specs on. I don't think that that a storage array buyer should be really too worried about which exact processor is running on the controllers. But what they should be interested in is the fact that there's been a big jump in performance for these systems thanks to these enhancements. So the FlashArray C and X are basically Pure's bread and butter. These are the systems that are out there all over the place, and the new controllers are just a lot faster. They support new features. There's also the XL, which is the really big flash array. There's the E, which I mentioned before. But these guys sit in the middle, and it's just nice to see them upgraded. One of the things, too, of course, that's nice is that the Pure Evergreen model means that companies can upgrade a previous C with the new controllers to get the newest C and more performance. And as you said, the whole personality of the array just stays the same. You just swap out the controllers, and suddenly it's like you've got a new car with a new engine in it. And, that's pretty cool. There's also approaches that allow people to move between arrays, but that's a little bit more challenging. And frankly, most people, I think, in production are just going to want to continue to upgrade the system they already have. We heard a story from Kaz, one of the founders of Pure Storage, about one of their original customers who bought the original pre-release flash array way back 12 years ago, I guess, and is still running it in production and has replaced literally every component of it. But as far as it is logically concerned, it's still the same array that they bought 12 years ago. And I think that shows, again, the fact that Pure is really fundamentally about that ownership experience more than it is about any specifics of the technology involved.
And that whole upgrade process was non-disruptive, and that thing, I think that is kind of amazing that you can swap out all of the different components, real chip of Theseus stuff, and do that for 12 years with non-disruptive upgrades. So the storage is basically immortal. That aspect I think is really, really cool. One other aspect I noticed was Pure was talking about maybe pushing some capabilities that exist in Pure 1. The software as a service thing that every array plugs into, so you can look at analytics and understand what's happening with your whole fleet. They're starting to look at how do we push certain capabilities that would exist in the cloud only, because there's some challenges around geopolitics about where is data and should we actually be shipping this to different countries. So how can we push some of this capability into the array? So the fact that we've now got better processors and more capability in the arrays, if there's extra overhead there that's not being used for performance, that's available to be used for other bits and pieces that would otherwise sit outside the array. That's going to be an interesting thing about how are they going to start pushing some of that capability to run in the arrays themselves.
Yeah, and I think that it certainly is an interesting situation. And again, it all comes back to the fact that unlike so many other companies that are moving to a software on commodity hardware approach, Pure is leaning into a complete integrated solution. All the way down to the chips, the NAND chips that they're speccing and purchasing, all the way up to the customer experience and upgrade process. It is pretty much an end-to-end solution, and that gives them some capabilities that some of the other storage companies just don't have.